Okay. We basically had missed a week because we were sick, and I just wasn't in the mood. Still kinda sick, but it's infinitely more manageable.
Yes.
Last time, we had started a ramble about Kirby's Dream Collection that extended a ton into the end slate, as a few of these points had, but we were going to talk about how, in a lot of ways, like, Dream Collection is overhyped. Because, in a lot of ways, it is. Where you could make a dumb semantic argument that Dream Collection, like... Fuck, no, I can't speak. Okay. It was the cynical point Carson was going to make, and it's basically... Dream Collection gets heralded as, like, one of the greatest collections ever, but a lot of people that say that are more focused on the museum aspect and the fact that the collection had some really high production value, but you could make a...
And we have the funny thing I find that people do for other collections. The Dream Collection, it acknowledges a bunch of other Kirby games, but you can't play them.
It's the main platformers, not any of the weird spin-offs that are just as important. And even out of the main platformers, it's not even, like, all...
Then don't ask for weird shit to be included in, like, 3D All-Stars or whatever if you're going to use that fucking argument.
Yeah, it's because, like... I get, you know, the main platforming stuff in Dream Collection, but you could then make a point that there's no, like... Nothing from the, like...
Even if you're going to do the platformers, you could at least say, why is Nightmare in Dreamland not there? Because that's a remake of Kirby's Adventure. You could also say that,
no Amazing Mirror, no Squeak Squad.
Yeah. Oh, but those games are too new at the time, even though that game was released in, like, 2011, and, like, a year later, Nintendo would launch the Wii U, and then, like, a year after the Wii U launched, they brought Virtual Console, and oh, look at that, Game Boy Indeed as Virtual Console.
Yes. And this was, like, a Wii game, and I know the Wii doesn't have the best storage, but I'm gonna be this guy. The Wii could easily have handled at least the Game Boy stuff.
And then, like I said...
And the DS isn't so much a space limit, but the problem with DS games, and, like, emulation and shit, is often companies being weird about the touchscreen, even if it wasn't used that much.
And like I said, in the previous recording, we have the other thing that, you know, it's like, everyone got their fucking, like, knickers in a twist over it being the Shindo version of, like, 64 and 3D All-Stars, but, like I said before, none of you complained that the Dream Collection doesn't have the Super Game Boy compatibility for Dreamland 2. It's the fucking boring black and white version.
Even though the whole semantic argument for people that would come up with a point like that is something along the lines of like, oh, but Shindo fundamentally ruins the game.
You only care about Shindo because of speedrunning.
No, remember the whole argument is that, oh, this is proof Nintendo is anti-speedrunning. They don't care about the community. Because that can turn into this whole tangent, and it always amused me if people were like, anyone that wants to get into speedrunning can't use 3D All-Stars. Even though I've always laughed at people trying to justify, oh, getting into speedrunning, because half the fucking...
Mario 64 and Ocarina of Time, those communities have no right to make that excuse, because genuinely for a while, the fucking IQ was the optimal speedrunning version for both of those games.
Yeah.
Actually, no, it was the IQ for Ocarina of Time. Mario 64, I believe the IQ actually used Shindo version.
I think IQ is Shindo.
So...
For a microsecond, Ocarina of Time!
But my point is, it used a fucking Chinese plug-and-play that's not even guaranteed to have the game on it, because to curb piracy in that region, all of the games were downloaded over fucking 90s internet.
Well, it wasn't...
Or it was kiosk.
If it wasn't... That wasn't for piracy. That's not what that was for. The download stuff wasn't to curb piracy, it was to do something else. China, for years, had this weird thing about, like, refusing to let Japanese products exist in China, and they were really big on this whole like, any video game made in Japan was not allowed. So that...
My point basically is this was a Chinese plug-and-play that's not even guaranteed to have the game. You have no fucking right to talk about the accessibility of speedrunning.
Because to talk about the IQ player for just a minute, the main reason had nothing to do with piracy. It was literally because in order to get around that Japanese video game law, China didn't mind plug-and-play systems. So Nintendo partnered with a Chinese company to create...
Anyway, other thing, I really do, I think I'll grant before things, I really do hate when people was like a collection or whatever overemphasize like the extras of it, because let's be fucking real, unless you are capturing the footage for like a YouTube video or haha memes because it's official Nintendo product that referenced Obama's presidency, how often have you loaded up the Dream Collection to purely go look at the museum? The answer is probably only like once, and then you've never fucking touched it again.
I've said crap like that because people want to really push this concept of extras and stuff, but...
No, I will acknowledge when a collection does that well, it can do it really fucking well. Like, I don't think it's released yet, but there's going to be on, like, modern consoles this, like, big 50th, like, anniversary collection for Atari that not only has like their 2600 stuff, but their later like arcade releases that went into like the 90s, and some Jaguar shit is on there. And I believe that has like a bunch of recorded for this collection modern interviews. Was like all.
Did they put some 7800 stuff in there too?
I'm pretty sure, yes. I think it was like nearly everything they were able to like still have the rights to.
Yeah. Which is a deep history of stuff. We're going back to the point.
My point basically was when you do, something like that, especially because a bunch of these are, I believe I said, like, modern recorded for this collection, like, interviews and shit. And when you go that far, that is nice, but the thing is, I feel most collections really don't go that far, and in most collections it is really just some, like, art and stuff, and even then, like I said, when they do have larger interviews, it's like, how often do you go back and, like, read these interviews or watch these videos? The answer is still probably not very often.
Because it really does come down to, for a lot of people, like, it's cool, but it really is, in a lot of ways, pointless in a grander sense of like, yeah, it was cool, but do you really, like, honestly, over the years, if you return to these collections, do you really care about the extras? Now, if the game had an elaborate soundtrack menu, returning to that to enjoy some of the music without needing to play the games is cool, and that's actually always worth returning to. And I do, in a big collection sense, value, like, sort of music, just for the sake of being able to listen to music you like, because that's an actual thing you can get infinite value out of. And interviews and stuff are cool. And, like, concept art and stuff is also cool, but it's like, after you've experienced it once, unless it's just something you find super, super fascinating, it's something you likely don't look at all that often. I get playing game music over and over and over again, that makes sense to me, but the rest is often, in my opinion, frivolous nonsense that I feel people are way too dead set on. Because, like, the Kirby, the Dream Collection is seen as like, oh, it's like this amazing...
And, that's another thing I wanted to say was the museum. Everyone goes on about, you know, they have this museum and stuff. Most of the shit that museum covers isn't related to Kirby. It's some other event that happened in that year, which is why, funny, and it kind of acknowledges Obama as the 2008 president.
And that goes into a actual point to really... I mean, it's not a bad collection, but, like, if you're going to, you know, herald the Kirby, I feel you could make an argument that the Kirby is missing a lot of iconic stuff, and if you're gonna sort of discount the side games, which is funny because those Kirby side games are often heralded as pretty good.
Yes.
No, like, a lot of people...
And like I said, this was like, that was basically one of the only times they easily could have re-released Kirby Tales and Come More.
Yeah. Because there is a point there, and it ultimately builds to, it's like, it's a good collection, but so many people seem hung up on frivolous nonsense where, like...
Like, another funny thing I find are in a, I feel like in a different, basically, timeline, people would be complaining about this. The other thing, you know, when Overwatch is like, oh, it has, like, the challenge mode things from Return to Dreamland. You're excited about them recycling Return to Dreamland assets.
And you know, call the 3D All-Stars bare bones because it's just emulators. The Kirby was just emulators, but...
Oh, but it has those extra challenges and the, like, 3 episodes of the anime in the Kirby Museum.
And the museum is charming because it's random history. That takes effort. Cramming 3 lazy emulators into a $60 package and charging you $60 for lazy emulators is bad. Even though I feel the, you know, emulators and shit... Also, this is about where we... Because the challenge was you had to find a cave, and we just could not find it. And then I noticed over there, to the left, and then I'm just trying to run, and there's like really heavy wind, and then firepower, and you can just barely, like, with the fire, like, sort of barely duck and roll and get in here, and this is the cave.
And then the other thing people will bring up is the Kirby's is like, oh, but it came with the art book and CD, but I can use the argument, why wasn't the art book in the game? Why wasn't that concept art in the game?
Well, that's funny because people will say it being its own physical object is better because they took the time to print something physical instead of this weird push of having art in the game where it's like it's a physical object and therefore they cared where like 3D All-Stars is just lazy ROMs. And that really does build to sort of this point in most of the commentary we've had in this part is just kind of discussing the sort of hypocrisy in people, because I think 3D All-Stars is overhated. And I'm not just doing that to be, like, contrarian, because I think fundamentally, and I left him restarting because it was, like, literally right off the beginning. I was trying to not leave in too many failed attempts at shit, but Carson restarted so quickly, it was like, I could show that. I feel 3D All-Stars is fine, because that also goes into, and as the part comes to an end, it can also save this for a longer discussion, but my whole thing with 3D All-Stars, and this one opinion, and on the one hand I do get where this comes from, but I still think this is incredibly pretentious and whiny, where people's biggest problem with 3D All-Stars was they put 3 lazy ROMs on a Switch cartridge and charged you $60 for ROMs, when people will point out Crash gets a remake and they charge you like $40. How can Crash get 3 full remakes for less than Nintendo's charging for lazy ROMs? And I feel like that puts this stupid, arbitrary value on games where you're acting like... Cut to a successful attempt, and Carson wanted me to put the sound effect.
Everyone fucking does that.
There you go, Carson.
So world though. Any way. Well, that's
Hey,
why.
you asked.
Yeah, that's why the problem I've had in this.
That was your dumb request.
Because everyone fucking does it.
And so you, before you make your point, the reason the footage kind of blipped for a second, I cut past a failed attempt where Carson had just barely ran to the end and missed. Like, he was a couple of seconds off and had just ran out of time. So I just cut to the successful and put the Zorlo over that. Anyway.
What I was going to say, well, that's not a problem I've had with...
Part's almost over.
A problem, and it can go on out to other things, I've had with collections, and this goes for every collection as well. You know, it's nice to have re-releases. It's like, what's the point when it's enough? Because there are several collections which people herald, but I could, again, pull technically the same argument, man.
Stopping the video as we did, so we can finish this ramble and then stop.
There are, like, and, you know, here's a fun example, because it's something, again, because it was a collection people wanted, everyone was excited for it, but I could pull the same logic. Why is this not here? Capcom finally announced that Battle Network Legacy election. The two things was that, one, Capcom actually shut down a fan project that was trying to restore one of the, like, Japanese-only cell phone Battle Network games and sent it a cease and desist, and people thought, oh, they only ever do this if they're planning something, so that must mean they're obviously making, like, a Battle Network collection, but the collection didn't have that Japanese-only cell phone game in it, and that's the other thing of that collection is just the original versions of the game, and you still don't have to network transmission, the Wonder Swan games, or again, the weird exclusive Japanese, like, cell phone games, so you could make an argument, why were those out there? And it's also just Battle Network, where it could have been Battle Network and Star Force. This means Star Force is going to get its own collection on its own, and fucking no one's gonna buy that. You don't know what the fuck a Star Force is.
Ultimately, it builds up to this point that I feel so many people with these collections and stuff are entitled or just looking for stupid points to try to make themselves look better by making an argument like, oh, Nintendo doesn't care about you, they just put lazy ROMs on a Switch cartridge. It's like, it's Mario's anniversary and you don't have any cool history. You have, like, the music, and that's kind of nice, but it's like, where's my history of Mario? Where's my, like, concept art, or videos about, like, the making of 64, or Sunshine, or Galaxy? It's like, you're claiming this is for the anniversary, but, like, this isn't special, it's just ROMs on a, like, cartridge. Even though, like, they at least updated the visuals, where if you want to really riff on ROM on a cartridge, so to speak, we always end up talking about this, the Super Mario All-Stars on the Wii that they also released as an anniversary thing. The bigger collector's edition came with an art book, but that is a Wii disc that is a, literally just a ROM of the old Super Nintendo game, and it's not even the version of All-Stars that has Mario World. It's a ROM of the version of All-Stars that is just Mario 1, Mario 2, the other Mario 2, and, like, obviously Mario 3 as well. It's the NES. It's the NES games, but everyone knows the history of why there's two Mario 2s, because Doki Doki Panic was turned into the American Mario 2 because the actual Mario 2 was seen as difficult. The one guy that would test Nintendo games said this isn't fun, and even he kind of made a joke. It feels like this game just wants to take my money. But we need to stop. Cause I extended the end slate, but even then, I can just extend the end slate beyond, where we are, and that's easy to do in editing. I just make the end slate longer.
One final point about the Battle Network Legacy collection. Now, granted, this is just the way it looks in the trailer. It could end up not doing this for the final game. It could just been the way the trailer looked. And I also recognize this is because the Battle Network games are very text-heavy, and this seems to be so the game is, supportive of multiple languages, but it's one of those, you want to talk about lazy, it seems like that version of the collection is not using the standard, American ROMs. They seem to have used the Japanese ROM with just English text slapped over it. Now again, it was just like something in the trailer that could just be a in development beta thing, something that could change when it's
wrapping up.
I just wanted to bring that up as again, it's one of those you talk about lazy. It looks like they're so that this can easily be given multiple languages.
This can turn into a longer discussion, but ultimately, it's like, I feel a lot of these collections heralded as amazing. It's like, why didn't the Kirby Dream Collection include some of the weird spin-offs? People actually like the golf game, the Kirby's Dream Course. People actually like that game. And then you could make an argument, at least, the Game Boy games, because at the time of Dream Collection's release, we were several years removed from the Game Boy. Hell, we were even several years removed from some of the DS stuff, and I will kind of give them, maybe they didn't emulate the DS because at the time they didn't know how to handle the touchscreen.
So, like I said, at least have Dreamland at that point. At least have the remake of Kirby's Adventure. You could have done that one.
And Amazing Mirror. The Game Boy games, okay, we need to stop. I can understand DS emulation because touchscreen. That doesn't bother me. The DS has become a problematic system in the sense of emulation because emulating the touchscreen is often incredibly awkward unless it's a game entirely focused on the touchscreen. Like, Phantom Hourglass, as an example, would actually, if you were just remaking or emulating Phantom Hourglass, since so much is focused on the touchscreen, that just becomes the focal point. And as long as you have something that's decently emulating the pointer controls, Phantom Hourglass isn't actually that bad, but I do get, the problem. Because it was a touchscreen, and a bunch of games use that in creatively weird ways. So, I get DS games being off the table, but why did you not have your Game Boy games? And, Nightmare in Dreamland was a remake, but it was technically a better game because it had modern, powers and stuff. Amazing Mirror is actually an original game. You just gloss over Kirby and the Amazing Mirror. And you know what's funny about that? Because of something that would have been interesting that might be why they didn't completely mess with Amazing Mirror, but you could have, messed around and tweaked it a little bit is that Amazing Mirror had multiplayer, but you could have easily just tweaked it anyway, because the way the multiplayer, like, technically, and in this way, I kinda get what the problem was, and it was, as we finish up here, because I'm rambling well beyond the inslate, but in Amazing Mirror, you could actually, because everyone had their own Game Boy, you could actually sort of pseudo-separate and just take...
If you, turn the AI on, I say turn the AI on, but the AI turns it always there. If you call them in Amazing Mirror, they go off and do their own fucking shit.
Yeah. And the multiplayer was actually built around that, and I could see maybe that they didn't want to mess with Amazing Mirror because they didn't want people getting mad about them disabling multiplayer, or restricting the multiplayer to a single screen since you're now emulating a Game Boy game on a TV. And that does kind of ruin the multiplayer, but I think at least having a single player version would have been fine, so you could at least experience the game. But we need to end. Inslate extension ramble aside, this has been yet another post-commentary video, so I'm going to stop, fade into my question of the day, and I know my questions have outros anyway, but I'm just going to do small outro, even if it is redundant. So as always, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night, everybody. I hope you come back someday. See you later, but here comes the question of the day. It's time for the question of the day and my overall thoughts on the topic. So anyway, this is a follow-up to the discussion we were having last time that ended up extending into this part as well, and I thought this question would be a very good follow-up question from last time, but be honest, when it comes to the big collection games that exist that have extras like the one museum area in the Kirby's Dream Collection, how often do you actually revisit that side content? Now, if the side content is music, I could actually understand revisiting that a lot if you just wanted to hear some of your favorite soundtracks, especially back in the GameCube era when you couldn't easily find good quality rips of game music, so the only way to experience the music would be to play the game the music is from. So if the game had a sound test or some kind of museum mode or something that let you listen to the music, you could actually get tons of value out of that. That I understand, but be honest, how often do you actually look at the art or the other miscellaneous things like the one museum in the Kirby's Dream Collection? Because I don't think people revisit that as much as they act like they do. Because if you're ever replaying those collections, especially years after the initial release, you likely load up something like Kirby's Dream Collection because you enjoy the games on offer. You're likely not going back to that just to read the history facts in the museum, and the big collector's edition that was released, which I own, came with a CD, so if you wanted to enjoy the music, you didn't even need to load up the game. They actually had a pretty decent physical soundtrack CD. And yes, I still have it, because it's in the case. I held onto the box as well, the bigger collector's edition box, but this is not about the physical objects. This is an honest question. How often do you actually load up a collection like that to just browse miscellaneous art or a museum mode that gives you random history, like the Kirby giving history that happened in the individual years that those games released, which is why there's that quip about Obama being elected president, because that happened. And there is some cool history, and it's worth showing that off to friends and stuff, just because it is funny to see a Kirby game mention Obama, but really, be honest, I doubt you constantly look at those extra modes if you load that game up at all at this point. You're likely doing that to replay the games in the collection, and let's really be honest, at the end of the day, most people, when it comes to collections and stuff, generally prefer the main attraction being the game's own author, yet people want to make a big deal out of arbitrary fluff like a big elaborate museum for history or just some other random point. I'm rambling, especially after that longer ramble we had that ended up in the in-slate. I really should stop because this question is going to make that video extra long because we rambled a good bit after the video ended, and now I'm basically turning my question into a little rant. But anyway, you can leave your thoughts, opinions, and answers in the comments, or you can leave them on social media. All of my social media links, as well as my Discord links, are in the video description. Now, as always, I need to be a shill for a minute. If you subscribe to the channel, and if you follow me on social media, that really helps our communities grow. But anyway, I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I hope I will see you all next time. So as always, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night, everybody. I hope you come back someday. See you later.